As a hobbycraftist? I don't know. As a bloke who does what I do, whenever a new trailer or movie comes out, you're always looking for inspiration for a new diorama. That's cool, but it's a bit too complicated and a bit of a boring scene. Yeah, I love Mario Kart, but I don't think I'm skilled enough to make it. Wait, hold on a minute. Go back? Yes! That's the one. That's the moneymaker. So we'll start the way any good diorama starts, by chugging 2 litres of Pepsi just to use the plastic bottle. You see, the top third of this bottle does a really good impersonation of a Banzai Bill from Mario. See what I mean? Problem is, just like me, he's a bit empty inside. But unlike me, that's quickly solved with a quick spray of expanding foam. And of course, as always, safety first. So let's just, yep, there it is, give it a quick spray. And since it was my first time using it, of course I sprayed far too much, and made a huge mess everywhere.
Not approved!
But since I'm too lazy to start over again, we're just gonna roll with it. So whilst the expanding foam expands some more, we can move on to making Mario. And just like in the movie, he's getting blasted across the place at about 300 miles an hour, pressed to the front of a Banzai Bill. So he needs an appropriate I'm gonna die face. Once 3 holes have been mashed into the clay, we'll fill 2 of those holes with white clay, which will later become Mario's eyes, because of course we want Mario to see the terror unfolding before him, although arguably Mario without any eyes would be a more terrifying situation. Then we'll paint the inside of Mario's mouth a nice inside of Mario's mouth pink, which we're doing now because it's easier to paint it before we put in things that normally go in a mouth, like teeth and a tongue. And whilst that dries, we can give him his signature Mario conch. With that in place, we can put in said teeth and tongue, before slapping on some hair and giving him his trademark stash. Then we can attach his head to an armature and start to build up his body. We'll give his red shirt a little collar, and then we can move on to making his dungarees. To do this, we'll need to roll out some blue clay, but I'm too lazy and also my wrists are too weak to roll it by hand. Enter the pasta maker, or as I like to call it, the clay grinder. And you know, it's amazing the amount of satisfaction you can get from squeezing a bunch of clay between 2 metal rollers. Yeah, look at that. So satisfying in fact that it's easy to get carried away and roll out far too much. So using about 1/10 of what we rolled out, we'll start to layer up Mario's dungarees. We'll start adding some creases and pleats, before adding some more dungaree details like a waistband and his front chest pocket. Then we'll add a bunch of diagonal lines across the whole thing to try and suggest that it's denim. Then we'll move on to making Mario's little booties. The most exciting part of which, well, to me anyway, is adding the soles on the bottom of the boots, especially getting to scribe in the tread detail, which normally no one would be able to see, but since Mario in this diorama is being lifted well off the ground, even the tread detail will be seen by everyone, so it's very important. Next up is Mario's cap, which is a bit of a misshapen mess since it's been pressed up against Banzai Bill. After that, we'll move on to making Mario's hands. So we'll put 3 little cuts in this piece of white clay, making his 4 fingers. And since Mario is gripping onto our mate Bill for dear life, off camera I've primered Bill in a layer of black, and then we can press Mario's hands up against his nose. After which we'll add a few more details like a thumb and knuckles, which are pretty integral to most hands. We'll also add on his wristbands and some pleats. And with the sculpting done, we can move on to some painting. I wasn't entirely happy with the standard colour that this skin-coloured clay comes in, so I decided to paint over it in a slightly different shade. Now on camera it looks almost exactly the same, but I promise you, in real life, it's quite different. With that pointless exercise out of the way, we can move on to adding some highlights to Mario's hair, as well as some lowlights and highlights to his gloves. And again, I wasn't so keen on the basic colour of the dungarees, so I decided to repaint it. Long story short, I basically repainted the whole thing. We'll give his dungarees a layer of dry brushing to make it look all worn, give his buttons a nice layer of gold, and then we can make a start on his eyes. Now this poor fella, as we mentioned, is travelling at speed without any protective eyewear, not recommended. So we'll add some blue to the bottom section of his eyes to make them look like they're watering a bit, and then blend that into the rest of the eyes with some more white. Then we'll add on his little pupils, and to make it look like he's really tearing up, we'll add some UV resin to the sides of his eyes. as well as some dribble coming out the side of his mouth for good measure. Well done Mario, you look like a mess. Next up is the base. We'll score and sand 9 cube shapes into this XPS foam, making sure to cut a notch where we'll sink the pole that will hold Banzai Bill and all our lighting. Then using a pencil and a ruler we'll score out some brick shapes, and we'll also carve out a hole underneath to house the battery pack. Then we can fit our pole, which is just a cardboard kitchen roll tube, and then start wrapping these flexible LED lights around it. And I probably should have, well, definitely should have, tested these lights before sticking them down, as it turns out they're far too weak and don't have a hope of shining through cotton wool. Whilst I rack my entire one brain cell trying to think of an alternative, I'll wedge some fine sand into the gaps around our bricks, and then spray it with a 2-to-1 mixture of water and PVA glue. And whilst I was waiting for that to dry, I remembered I had these little flexi LEDs. They're super bright, but they're green, which isn't exactly the colour of most rocket blasts. But you know, needs must. I also found this string of much brighter LED fairy lights, which we'll include with 3 of those green LED lights that I really badly soldered together. Next Bill gets a coat of silver which will hopefully show through the top layer of paint, and I've also added the stencils for his eyes and mouth, and then masked them over to protect them from the top coat. Then we can break out the airbrush and give the base a coat of burnt umber, before slapping on that black top layer, making sure to leave the edges of the panelling unpainted so that that silver comes through. Then we can remove that masking tape and paint up the eyes and mouth. I wanted to add some more detailing onto Bill to make him pop a bit more, and so he's not just got flat surfaces. So using this tiny hole punching tool, we'll pop a bunch of little circles out of clay, and then totally overcook them in the oven, making for some crispy rivets. Then we'll stick those onto the panels and add some weathering. And now that the base is dry, we can add a brownie orange top coat to the bricks. Then we'll rig up our new light setup before covering it in cotton wool. Let's put Bill on to make sure everything holds together okay, and then we'll cover over that gaping hole with more wool. To add to the effect that this is actually a rocket blast and not just a bunch of fluff stuck together, we'll overspray some shades of yellow, orange and red, and then at the base of the cloud, we'll overspray some black. Then it's just a matter of wedging Mario onto the front of Bill, and I guess we're just about done here. Well my friends and fellow crafters, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed torturing Mario for your entertainment. If you did enjoy the video, please click that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, all that good stuff. If you didn't enjoy the video, leave a comment, let me know how I can improve, but be kind, because I'm sensitive, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and here's a hint as to what next time's video will be about.